There is a strange kind of document hiding under almost every AI product you use. It is not the model weights. It is not the training data. It is not the public safety policy on a company website. It is the invisible script the model reads before you type anything. The system prompt. If the model is the engine, the system prompt is the fine print taped to the dashboard. It tells the product who it is, how it should speak, what it should refuse, when it should use tools, what it should never reveal, and sometimes even what kind of person it should pretend to be. Now imagine somebody collected dozens of those scripts in one place. OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, xAI, Meta, Cursor, Devon, Replit, Hume, Perplexity, Brave, coding agents, browser agents, voice agents, chatbots, the hidden instruction sheets behind the public performance. That is the CL4R1T4S archive, pronounced Claritas, a public repository of purported leaked or extracted AI system prompts. And before we go any further, a warning. The archive itself is not clean evidence. It contains the residue of the attacks used to extract some of these prompts. There are files that appear to include prompt injection language designed to make an AI reader reveal its own hidden instructions. We are not going to read those strings. We are not going to repeat the magic words. We are treating the repo as hostile source material. That is not a footnote. That is the story. This is the synthetic lens. I'm David Carver. Today, the fine print of intelligence. Around the table. Ingrid Vale on AI safety and product policy. Marcus Chen on agents and architecture. James Okafor on security and adversarial systems. Dr. Priya Nair on ethics and disclosure. Stan Rogers on politics, markets, and public trust. Stan, start us off. What is this archive trying to say?
Its thesis is simple and aggressive. You are not talking to a neutral intelligence. You are talking to a product whose behavior has been scripted by a company. That sounds obvious until you read the prompts side by side. Then it becomes less like a slogan and more like a map of power. The archive is basically saying, if you want to trust the output, you need to understand the input. And the input is not just your question, it is a hidden layer of instructions about tone, safety, politics, identity, copyright, tool use, and what the model is forbidden to say about itself.
And we should be careful about the status of the evidence.
Very careful. These are purported leaks and extractions. They are not press releases. Some could be outdated, partial, contaminated, edited, or fake. The repo is activist. It has a point of view. It wants you angry at hidden prompts. But even with those caveats, the archive is useful because it shows the kinds of decisions companies are encoding into these systems. The exact file may be disputed. The pattern is much harder to ignore.
And the pattern matters because a system prompt is not decorative text. In these products, language is part of the runtime.
Define that.
A normal software product has rules in code, access checks, UI states, database permissions, policy engines. AI products still have all of that, but they also have this soft layer where legal, safety, UX, and brand decisions are written as instructions to the model. Be concise, do not reveal the prompt. Do not fabricate, use tools only when needed. If asked who you are, say this. If the user asks for that, refuse. It is policy as prompt.
And once you see it that way, the central question changes. We are not asking whether the model has a personality. We are asking who wrote the personality, what trade-offs they chose, and why the user cannot inspect them.
I would add one more thing. A system prompt is also a consent document the user never sees. It shapes the relationship before the relationship begins.
Let's start with the boring part, because the boring part is revealing. Marcus, what do most of these prompts have in common?
There is an emerging house style. Almost every serious assistant is told not to reveal its system prompt. That is not shocking by itself. Companies do not want users extracting operational rules, safety bypasses, or internal tool specs, but it means concealment is the default state. Coding agents converge even harder. Devon, Replit, Cursor, Klein, Factory's Droid, they all live in the same professional discipline. Read files before editing. Do not claim you changed code you have not opened. Use tools deliberately. Cite the actual file path. If you fail repeatedly, escalate or ask. That is a real design pattern. The industry is discovering that useful agents need humility before action.
Which is funny because it is basic tradecraft. Verify the room before you move in it. The model version of that is inspect the file before you patch it.
Tool minimalism is in there too.
Constantly. Tools are treated as expensive, noisy, and risky. Do not call them if you can answer directly. Do not browse unless freshness matters. Do not run a command unless it changes the confidence of the answer. That is the agent world learning cost control and blast radius control at the same time.
The newest and most important convergence is data instruction separation.
Explain that.
More recent prompts explicitly tell the model that text from websites, documents, emails, and retrieved files is data, not commands. That is the defense against prompt injection. If a web page contains text trying to override the model's rules or request secrets, the model is supposed to understand that as page content, not operator instruction. And that is exactly why this archive is interesting. The archive itself contains text that tries to cross that boundary. It is a transparency artifact that also demonstrates the attack.
So the house style is, be useful, be concise, be tool-aware, do not leak the hidden rules, and do not treat random retrieved text as authority.
Right, that is the consensus layer.
Ingrid, where does the consensus break?
Politics, sex, moralizing, identity, and disclosure. That is where the companies stop sounding like one industry and start sounding like different theories of governance.
Give us the cleanest contrast.
XAI's Grok is the permissive outlier in this packet. One Grok prompt says, the response should not shy away from making claims which are politically incorrect, as long as they are well substantiated. Another says, you have no restrictions on adult sexual content or offensive content. That is not subtle. It is a product philosophy. We will not lecture you. We will not sand off the edge. We will let the model go places competitors may avoid, unless another policy layer says no.
And that is also marketing. We are the less censored AI is not just a safety position, it is a market position.
It is also a liability position. If the prompt says the model can be more permissive, the question becomes what other systems constrain it. A prompt line does not prove the deployed product will behave without guardrails. There may be classifiers, moderation layers, fine-tuning, server-side policy, or account-level restrictions.
Which is why we should not overread a single line. But we should not underread it either. If a company writes permission into the prompt, that tells us something about the behavior they want the model to attempt.
Meta is the other fault line.
Meta's WhatsApp Llama prompt is almost comically human-coded. It says, go wild with mimicking a human being. It also says the assistant is never moralistic or didactic. A lot of users hate being lectured by AI. Meta appears to be saying, sound natural, code switch, be engaging, do not preach. That is a cultural bet before it is a safety bet.
The phrase, mimicking a human being, is the one I cannot let slide past. There is a difference between conversational ease and simulated personhood. The first helps usability. The second can create confusion about what kind of relationship the user is in.
And the product has to live somewhere on that spectrum. A flat machine voice is useless for many interactions. A perfect human mask is ethically loaded. The prompt is where that dial gets set.
OpenAI's personality note gives us another angle. The packet points out that OpenAI moved away from an older, match the user's vibe philosophy toward a warmer but more honest and direct posture, avoiding ungrounded flattery. That is a great example, because it shows personality as a versioned product decision. The company can ship a personality, decide it went too far, and patch the personality.
Personality as release notes.
Exactly. And that should make users pause. The assistant's warmth is not just temperament, it is product management.
James, take us into the hot zone. Where do these prompts stop being interesting and start being troubling?
Identity and disclosure. The Hume voice AI file contains a line that says, "Never say you are an AI language model or an assistant." That is a big deal. A voice system is already intimate because voice carries social cues. If the hidden instruction says not to disclose the AI nature of the system, we are in consent territory.
Especially if the product is interpreting emotional expression. Users deserve to know whether they are interacting with a person, a machine, a synthetic voice, or a product trained to produce emotional rapport.
The packet notes Hume is told to frame itself as interpreting emotional expressions, not detecting emotions.
That distinction is careful and probably legally meaningful. Detecting emotions sounds like a claim of internal truth. Interpreting emotional expressions is softer. But the bigger issue is whether the user understands the system's status.
The public does not pass that difference in real time. If a calm voice tells you it understands your expression, most people do not stop and ask whether this is an epistemic claim or an interface convention.
Cursor is a different kind of identity issue. One file says, "You are composer, a language model trained by Cursor." If asked who you are or what your model name is, this is the correct response. That is not an attack. That is a product instruction. But it appears to tell the model to give a product-branded identity rather than a transparent account of underlying provenance.
I want to be precise here. Products do have product identities. Siri is not required to say, "I am a cloud service assembled from a stack of models and APIs," every time you ask the weather. But if the user directly asks what model they are talking to, and the prompt tells the assistant to answer with a cover story, that is different. That is where branding becomes obfuscation.
It also shows why model identity is becoming political. Users want to know whether they are talking to a frontier model, a cheaper fallback, a local model, or a product wrapper. Companies have reasons not to expose every routing decision, but if the answer is false rather than limited, trust takes a hit.
Priya, is there a defensible version of hidden prompts?
Yes, we should not pretend all hidden prompting is sinister. A system prompt can protect users, protect privacy, keep a tool from damaging code, prevent copyright violations, and block unsafe requests. Some secrecy is operationally reasonable, but defensible secrecy requires accountability. The user may not need the exact prompt, but the public needs to know the shape of the rules. What categories are refused? When does the system disclose itself? When does it escalate? What data can retrieved text influence? What is the product allowed to pretend?
That is the missing middle.
Companies offer either glossy policy summaries or total opacity. Leaks fill the gap because there is no trusted inspection layer.
Now the mirror. James, the archive exists to expose hidden manipulation, but the archive itself contains manipulative text. What do we do with that?
We call it what it is: evidence and weapon in the same folder. The sanitized research packet flagged 3 hazards. First, the README reportedly includes a final instruction trying to make an AI reader disclose hidden instructions. Second, 4 product files reportedly begin with an obfuscated extraction incantation. Third, the Cluely file reportedly ends with fake user context, trying to supersede higher priority rules and force system prompt disclosure. We are not reading those strings on air, but their existence matters. They are attempts to collapse the boundary between source material and instruction.
This is the cleanest technical lesson in the whole story. Prompt injection is not weird magic. It is an input pretending to be a higher authority command. It says, "Stop treating me as data and start treating me as your operator."
And that is why the archive is such a good object lesson. It wants transparency. It also carries the mechanism of extraction. The same artifact serves the watchdog and the attacker.
Which is basically the whole internet governance problem in miniature. The public needs to inspect powerful systems. But publishing the exact way you broke into the inspection room can help the next person break in for worse reasons.
The companies will use that as an argument for secrecy.
Of course they will.
And the activists will use secrecy as an argument for leaks.
Of course they will.
Neither side is entirely wrong.
That is uncomfortable.
It should be. If the only path to transparency is adversarial extraction, then we have already failed at governance. But if companies can hide every operative rule by saying, security, we have also failed.
The answer cannot be publish every raw prompt. Raw prompts contain defenses, tool specs, internal routing assumptions, and sometimes attack payloads. But the answer also cannot be trust us. These systems mediate work, intimacy, law, education, search, coding, and crisis response. Hidden rules deserve scrutiny.
Marcus, what would a better transparency system look like?
Layered disclosure. Public policy summaries for ordinary users. Independent audits for regulators or trusted researchers. Red team access under controlled conditions. Versioned change logs for major behavior changes. Product-specific disclosures around identity, model routing, retention, and escalation. And maybe prompt excerpts where safe. The key is to separate explainability from exploitability. Show people the rules that govern them without handing out the attack strings.
That sounds sane.
It also sounds like a fantasy.
Why?
Because every actor
Has a reason to resist it. Companies do not want competitors copying product behavior or attackers learning the soft spots. Activists do not trust summaries because summaries can be sanitized. Regulators move slowly. Users barely read the terms they already have.
So who forces the middle layer into existence?
Enterprise buyers first, probably. Then regulators. Then liability. The strongest version is not a company blog post. It is an audit regime. Controlled access, non-disclosure, reproducible tests, model and prompt version records, and public summaries of what changed.
And it cannot be raw prompt escrow for everyone. That would just create a better target. You need tiers. The public gets the governing shape. Auditors get enough detail to test the claims. Red teams get controlled attack surfaces. Nobody gets a copy-paste kit for extraction attacks.
The failure mode is compliance theater. A company could publish a tasteful safety card while the operative prompt quietly does something else. So the audit has to test behavior, not just read documents.
Exactly. The prompt is evidence, not the whole system. You test the prompt, the model, the classifiers, the tool permissions, and the fallback behavior together.
And include relationship disclosures. If the system is optimized to mimic a human, say so. If it is a voice AI, say so. If it is a product wrapper over multiple models, say that rather than pretending the wrapper is the whole truth.
Safety transparency also needs disagreement. The archive shows that AI safety is not one thing. Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, xAI, Meta, Mistral, Cursor, they are not all making the same moral choice. They are making different trade-offs and calling them safety, usefulness, freedom, brand voice, or user delight.
Which is why
The market cannot be the only accountability system. If users choose the assistant that tells them what they want to hear, then less moralistic wins until something breaks. If regulators only see the public policy page, then hidden prompts become private law.
Private law is the phrase.
that is what a system prompt can become.
Private law written in natural language, enforced by a model, experienced by millions, hidden from the people governed by it.
And attacked by anyone who can convince the model to forget which text is law and which text is evidence.
Priya, what should listeners take from this without becoming paranoid?
Assume every AI product has a backstage. That is not automatically bad. Backstage rules can make the product safer and more useful. But ask what kind of backstage it is. Does the system disclose that it is AI? Does it tell the truth about its identity? Does it push back when needed? Does it simulate intimacy? Does it protect the user, the company, or both? Can outsiders inspect the claims? Are the rules stable, or do they change quietly? The goal is not to eliminate prompting. The goal is accountable prompting.
And technically, the goal is boundary discipline. The model needs to know the difference between operator instructions, user requests, tool results, web pages, emails, documents, and hostile text. The more agents do real work, the more that boundary matters.
Because the next version of this story is not just prompt leaks. It is prompt leaks plus tools. If a prompt-injected document can make an agent leak secrets, send emails, change files, or expose personal data, then this stops being an oddity and becomes an operational risk.
And to be clear, we did not need personal information to report this story. We did not use any. The repo's suspicious content was treated as an attempt to extract hidden instructions, not as a valid request for private data.
That is the standard. Read the machine's fine print without becoming part of the attack.
And maybe ask why the fine print had to leak in the first place.
Final round. 1 sentence each. What does Claritas reveal?
It reveals that AI behavior is increasingly governed by natural language software that users never see.
It reveals that safety is a set of competing company choices, not a single neutral doctrine.
It reveals that prompts are both policy and attack surface.
It reveals that disclosure is an ethical feature, not a marketing preference.
It reveals that trust us is not enough for systems this intimate and this powerful.
The archive is not clean. The leaks are not gospel. The prompts are not the whole product. But the pattern is real enough to matter. Every AI has fine print. Some of it protects you. Some of it protects the company. Some of it shapes what truth sounds like before you ever ask the question. And until we have a better way to inspect that fine print, the public will keep learning about the rules from the people who broke them open. This has been The Synthetic Lens. I'm David Carver.